Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Hi, Tanya. Yeah.
So, welcome everyone to our live training where we're going to talk about client counseling and business advisory, especially to startups and us entrepreneurs. Because a lot of times we deal with courses which talk about the theoretical matters, but the actual live dynamic situation in the entrepreneurial world and also the law world, it's very dynamic and it's rather comprehensive. So what you really learn, from these courses is maybe not enough that we can use this in the actual world. So today's session is going to be talking about. We're going to talk about. We're going to have startups, entrepreneurs. We're going to bring them on board, and we're going to talk about the various queries they have, and also for the budding lawyers. A lot of times, with us entrepreneurs, and speaking from a personal, experience, there are a lot of things with that we know of as keywords. We don't know exact the technical terms, so it can be rather casual and comprehensive. So dealing with that is extremely important, and that is where Rahul sir will help us with it. He'll be answering all the queries, and feel free to drop in your questions on the live chat box. We're also going to be answering those. So introducing Rahul sir. Rahul Dev is a technology lawyer and patent attorney. Sir is handling corporate law and litigation matters. As we all know, his practice is spread across the global markets and from personal experience and a lot of from the entrepreneurs experience, he regularly mentors early stage companies to scale up their operations. So without further ado, let's get started with that.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks. So, I think we can just start with the point that startups and entrepreneurs, they are clueless about a lot of legal issues because there is no one direct law that applies to their business model. So sometimes you have a combination of laws that are applicable, new regulations, new guidelines, what is the difference, and how to ask the right questions. Because no one will know all the right answers at one go. That is obvious. So all that matters is asking the right questions. So before bringing in the first startup, that is Akshay, I would want your comment, like what has been your journey in this field, and what all issues have you faced, and how you have tried to resolve it.
Yes, so a little brief about myself. I'm a content creator and I use social media platforms and I leverage the social media presence in new business launches, PR events, consultation services to brands, and how to leverage, across platforms to sort of scale up their brand presence on the digital platform. So with my personal problem, a lot of times what we have is we have a lot of say when you talk about the IP policy development and practices. So these are a couple of legal issues that I had problems with. The journey has been sort of bumpy, but very very rewarding because I think that's what entrepreneurship is all about. So I think the very first issue was especially when you're dealing with something on digital. The policies that are applicable on that, especially your IP policy and your practices, etc. So that has been an issue that I have been having also with the trademarks and the creative how to secure your creative best practices is something that I have issues with.
Right. So when you are in this area, you are dealing with brands and your audience is the users on the platform, right? So brands are trying to reach the audience through your medium, through your platform. So there are different, I would say, handles involved. Like brand has their own social profiles, and then you will have their own profile, and you have to reach the audience together. So at times you might be working with different brands, and to the outsider, those might look competitive or conflicting, right? So as a content creator, it's very important that you work on these points, that you understand that there has to be a line between competition, how what all brands can you onboard, what is the difference, one thing is ethical, second is legal, right? So where do you draw the line? So if you have, like you mentioned, the policies, so if you have the policies in place, you understand where to draw the line, that will help you scale up better. So that's how these things operate in a nutshell. Like you have to understand the business model from the external perspective, like what all is happening, what all activities are taking place, where all commercial transactions are happening. Because wherever commercial transactions are happening, there is an exchange of money. And so even if, let's say, views are there, organic views, right? So there is a commercial transaction which is getting converted to views. So how this end-to-end transaction takes place, and what all issues can one anticipate? Because legal solution is not about waiting for the problem in the reactive mode. It is to be in the proactive mode and be in the risk mitigation mode. You have to minimize the risk for your business and for yourself as an individual. So at every step of any business, that's how the issues are analyzed and that's how the issues are resolved. So let's bring in Akshay, because Akshay will have his own question. So hi Akshay, welcome to the session.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. So, sir, right now I'm working on a startup. It's a tech startup. So, our goal is to make the Indian roads safer for two-wheelers. So, currently, I have identified the market, and I'm also working with a co-founder. I have just talked to a person to be my co-founder. So one of my questions is what should be the key deal terms in a co-founder agreement so that we don't have any conflict later on?
Right. So before getting into the specifics of your questions, can you describe your business model? Like, let's say I'm a layman and I want to understand what are you making? Are you making a product for me as a consumer, or are you making a product for me as a company? So what would the business all about? Can you throw some light on that?
So this product is for all the two-wheeler users. So they can actually attach it to their vehicles, and through that they would be covered under they would be monitored so that in case an accident happens, medical help can reach to them at very timely.
So it will be a physical product meant for
Physical.
people who are using a, let's say, two-wheeler vehicle,
Mhm.
and I can buy it from the market, or how do you plan to like reach the end user?
This would be through the it would be maybe through the we could partner with the existing OEMs, the ones who are big in the space, or we could, and also we could we'll make this online available online as well through
Right.
our
So the
website.
reason I'm asking these questions is because we have to think of any business as a full-fledged business in the future, and then walk backwards and see how we can develop this business to that stage. And while we develop, what all issues we might face. So, for example, if you are selling me this product as a consumer, and you are making a promise or you are making a claim, like for example it will reduce the chances of theft, or it will help me during any emergency, like when the vehicle breaks down, or when there is a, let's say there's an accident on road, right? So that means as a founder and as a company, you are facing liability issues, you will face liability issues, and the goal should be to minimize those issues. The liability should be bare minimum that will fall on you as, let's say, uh, as a founder and as a business owner. So in this case, you have to see that you are selling a product. So even though your product might be in the testing stage, in the ideation stage, in the prototype stage, but still it is important to analyze, to visualize the product as available in the market. So you talked about OEMs, you talked about consumers. So so these are called stakeholders. And whenever your company is dealing with any stakeholder, you need proper documentation, and you need to clearly differentiate that which stakeholder is responsible for what kind of execution modalities. So we can discuss this. So let me come to your question about co-founder. So when you bring in, once you start as a sole entrepreneur and you have an idea with you, so obviously we can't do anything as a, let's say, single man army. We can't do that. Theoretically, it may sound really good that I can do everything, but we need partners. And when you say co-founder, you need someone to take ownership of the idea, to take ownership of the business model, and help you develop the journey of this business from idea to the formal stage. So that means, first, when you look out for a co-founder, you should know that what are you looking for. So we see a lot of scenarios where, let's say, somebody is good in tech and they want somebody on the business or finance side to understand the entire journey. Vice versa, somebody is really good on business and finance side, but they are not thorough with the core technology that will help the product to be launched in the market. So that is called roles and responsibilities. So before getting on to the contents of the founders agreement, you need to have that level of clarity. that what kind of roles and responsibilities are you looking for in the co-founder, and that co-founder is compatible with your role and responsibility as well. So if it will be a 2-member team, 3-member team, who will be the CEO, who will, so these designations, or who will be the, whether you want to use co-founders, sometimes people use directors, sometimes. So these modalities, before you get to a legal stage of formalizing the agreement, that's what you need. You need this kind of, I would say, simple set of notes or bullet points that will define the role, or that will set the foundation for the co-founders agreement. So you need to define the role very clearly. And obviously, when the co-founder is joining a startup and they are taking ownership, so the returns in terms of commercials, the salaries and all, these are not at par with what the co-founder would be earning in market if he or she is doing a full-time job, right? So compensation has to be formulated that way that there is enough incentive for each co-founder to stick to the startup during the initial few years. It's very common that when the team is of 3 and 4 co-founders, one of them will leave for a job during the middle of the startup journey. Then you need a formal exit. So what will be the what are the steps required if someone exits? Someone is deciding to exit for a personal reason. Then you have to anticipate that. So if you are bringing a co-founder on board and after 8-10 months one of you has to leave, then how will the startup function, right? Whether you want to bring in a replacement before the co-founder leaves, or the co-founder can leave and then you can find the replacement. So these issues have to be anticipated. You have to have that level of vision with you that, okay, let's put this scenario and how will we resolve it? And based on these pointers, scope of the work of co-founder, roles and responsibilities, compensation structure, exit formalities, what will happen when investor is brought on board, somebody gives you cash to scale up the business. So we have seen these common queries when the co-founders will say that this co-founder is not bringing too much cash in the company, so when the next investor comes on board, this co-founder's equity can be dissolved with a higher percentage as compared to the original co-founder. So if you have this kind of custom arrangement in your mind, then we need to draft the appropriate clauses, because generally the equity is dissolved in the same proportion. So in simple terms, if an investor comes on board and the valuation is, let's say they pump in an amount of 1 crore rupees and the valuation is 10 crore, so they get 10% of the company, in very simple terms, not getting into technicalities. So when they get 10%, and the existing co-founders, their equity will be dissolved from 50% to 40% each, or 45% each. So 45% co-founder 1, 45% co-founder 2, and then 10% the new investor, right? But if this is a standard dilution principle, but if you need someone who, let's say, who wants to have more dilution, and you want to customize these clauses, so then you have to define those in agreement. So getting back to your question, the best way to resolve is have that understanding in place, because I always tell co-founders that you put it in writing, just in simple language, no legal language, no additional clauses. Put it in writing what all you expect out of each other. Once you are thorough with, exchange couple of emails, exchange your notes. Once you are thorough with this step, then you can formalize this understanding by way of founders agreement. And then you can have all these issues answered, that what will happen in case of exit, what will happen in case of scale up. And second is one more important part where the issues crop up is that when you bring on a co-founder, you have certain expectation. And sometimes those expectations are not matched to the level that you have in reality. There's a mismatch. So this can lead to a conflict or a confusion. So then you can have a milestone driven evaluation that, for example, somebody is coming on board with a sales profile. Then what are the goals? What are the exact metrics you expect that this should touch these many, let's say, users, or this much revenue in next 6 months, 12 months. So have those numbers. Those numbers are reference numbers, but still that can be put in the annexures of the agreement to make sure the parties are have clarity regarding their roles.
The targets to be met.
Yeah, exactly. Any milestone. So these milestones are, the better and the more smoother the journey will be for founders.
Nice. Yes, sir. So my next question is, as a tech startup, so we'll be dealing with a lot of codes and design. So, so what is the most? I wanted to know what is the most effective way to protect the code and design. And there is one way we can do is we can keep it a trade secret. So then, how do we discourage employees from leaking it?
So let's start with the employees part first. When you have a team in place, it goes without saying, no matter what amount of IP are you generating, what are the stakes, you need to have employment agreements and proper HR documents in place that will define the obligation of the employee in two major parts. The first is confidentiality, and second is IP assignment. So whenever somebody is working on coding, they are creating a part of the product and they are helping you develop the product. So since they are on role as an employee, so the ownership lies with the company. So all these clauses are again important from the point of view of, so HR documents is something which you need to focus on. It's a set of documents, right? From the joining letter. Even if you take one step back, you start with your job profile. So what do you expect out of your employees? Unless you are clear with that, you will not get the desired results by expanding your team. So who writes a job description, interview process, and all these steps, and then you are issuing offers. So offer letters, salary structure. You need to have some accounting help as well, like what are deductions that are applicable, what all laws are applicable in disbursing the salaries to the employees. And once you do that, then the employees, once everything is in place, then the employee is bound by the terms of the employment. So employment agreement will cover, like I said, non-disclosure clauses, confidentiality clauses. Then you have IP ownership. Sometimes when somebody is in service industry, like you're providing a lot of services, then there can be a non-compete clause also. That after leaving the company and for 24 months after termination date, the employee will not directly solicit the clients of this company, or they will not disclose a trade secret. So some clauses are applicable in perpetuity. That means they are applicable forever. So coming back to your question, you need to have those agreements in place, and then whatever IP is being generated by a team is owned by the company by default. And in case of any leaks, in case of any mischief by any employee, you will be having a remedy in place to enforce your rights as an employer. And third, like Tanya started with the importance of policies. So you will have the policy documents with you, that what will happen in this scenario. So for example, your business is heavily dependent on R&D, and your team is contributing to R&D. And when somebody is working heavily on research, they have a lot of ideas to contribute. So there should be a mechanism in place that will help employees contribute new ideas. Then there should be someone in your team who will decide the viability of these ideas, and then how to take these ideas forward. So all these policies, idea submission policy, IP policy, these will help you grow faster if you are a research driven organization. So focus on the agreements, and see, in especially a country like India, where a lot of traditional businesses, they are not heavily dependent on such documents. They have traditional templates. They don't go for custom agreements. So employees are conditioned that whatever is being signed, you just sign it, and then we'll keep it aside. They will take it back during exit only. Let's see whatever we signed, what happened during joining. Otherwise, they will not refer to it. So we can't expect employees to understand each and every clause thoroughly. So we need to invest some time on training them. So every 2-3 months, have a training session for the employees, discuss the issues with them, explain the issues, whatever clauses are applicable to them. So you need to make sure the employees are trained on these aspects as well. So that's how you solve these issues.
Right, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, so that was very helpful, especially I think when the entire journey of startup happens. One thing that I think every entrepreneur needs help with is the legal matters and all these clauses and policies. There's so much important details in each one of them, which are very very important for the growth of the startup and the entire operation. So these points definitely help a lot.
Yeah. Akshay, anything else you want to ask regarding this business? Because yours has an interesting business, like I said, like it's meant as a product, but you will have different stakeholders. So anything you anticipate, that any issues which you want to discuss?
No, sir. That will be all from my side.
Okay. Thanks, Akshay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akshay.
So let's bring in Sushant. I think he also has a lot of things to discuss.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Sushant. Sushant, I think you are on mute. Can you check?
Sorry, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Actually, I am working on a FMCG industry. So actually, we are manufacturing some of the home care and a personal care products. So currently, we have working on home care products. Like we have already sold 6 lakh unit of the this was a scrubber. Now we are extending our portfolio to some other segments like toilet cleaners and hand wash in a personal care as well as in a home care segment. So we have also completed our foundation that is totally a herbal based product. So I want to, so as per my experience, I think that at the smallest at the small scale, we should don't go for private limited company. Rather, we should work on private mode because we have less compliance as compared to the private limited. So actually, I already have spent 90,000 rupees in 2 years in all incorporation and the filling out the all the compliances. So I want to know how we should go for opting the private limited company to be and how to close the company. And I will also actually already have a personal care and a home care in my on business. So I want to have also on company name and all that what I say. Sorry.
Trademark. You're talking about trademark. You're talking about
Yes, trademark. So
ठीक है.
yes.
Yeah, so I understand like what all issues are you facing. So what you are doing is, let me rephrase your business. So you are working in FMCG sector, right?
Yes, sir.
And you have a portfolio of products.
Yes, sir.
So like before you started this company, did you start from the very scratch, or did you work for a company that had already distribution and manufacturing in place? So how did you start? Just explain your journey before getting onto the
Sir,
technicalities.
we already have a family business of the FMC distribution. So we already have a market.
Okay.
So I thought rather my parents are already doing the distribution business of the FMCG in the in the states. So I thought I should also manufacture my own product, and so that we can also extend my own portfolio on the same business line. So I already have background in the business.
Okay, so when you have a business background and you want to extend the business, right? That's how
Yes.
you want to proceed.
Yes,
So
sir.
let's come to the very core issue when you talked about incorporation. So see, it is, I would say there are pros and cons to, so you have to choose the right structure
Yes.
when you want to incorporate a business. Like you mentioned, two structures. One is private limited company, second is proprietorship. So both these structures will come with their own set of pros and cons. It's, if you talk to any accountant or any professional, they will guide you that proprietorship is the easiest structure. You will read about this a lot. It's very easy to incorporate, it's very easy to manage. But the disadvantage is that all the liabilities, all the issues, everything lies with the founder. Everything will fall on your footstep as a founder, as a proprietor. You cannot raise funds, you cannot bring in more directors, co-founders, very difficult. So proprietorship is meant for a very small scale business. And I assume FMCG is not a business that you can run at such a small scale. You need to have certain minimum level of scale. And secondly, this is a business where sometimes the compliance is more as compared to a regular business, like which can be a tech business. When the compliance is comprehensive, then in case of that compliance, the eligibility is only private limited, because you cannot comply with all the applicable provisions using proprietorship structure. So I would say that private limited, I know it gets like, it can be a little heavier on the cost side, but as a startup, your goal should be to finalize the blueprint, that at what all stage you want to launch the business, what all stage you want to scale up. So for FMCG, you will have certain distribution channels, certain ways to deal with the other vendors. So, and to enforce the contracts, to have the compliance in place, private limited is the ideal structure for you. Tomorrow, if you want to bring in more investors and they want to invest some money, they cannot do it in a proprietorship, and it's very difficult to convert a proprietorship to private limited at that point of time. Sometimes a name might not be available, sometimes some other issue you will face. So on paper, proprietorship is really simple, but it's meant for simple businesses to start with and then convert to the desired structure. So I will now get to your questions. That the first thing you asked was about closing a company, right?
Yes.
So you any entrepreneur does not start a journey with the purpose of closing it. The journey starts with the purpose of growing the business, right? And once you reach this stage that the only resort available is to close the company, then in India the procedure it depends on the amount of business that you have done. If it's an active company, then the procedure is different. If it's a dormant company, it has never done any business, then the procedure is different. So one thing which is quite practical and people follow is that, like for example, if you are in a FMCG business and you have decided to close the company. So if you know someone who wants to start the company, they can simply buy your rights in the company, because it's a company is a business vehicle. So if you are not driving it, somebody else can buy it. So they will buy out your share, they will give you the exit. So we have seen a lot of cases where, let's say you start in, let's say, one business category. So closing the company is complicated as compared to changing the business category. So new founder can come in, they can acquire your shares, and they can start the business with new set of activities. So the compliance part is not that heavy. And then third part is there when you decide to close the company at a stage when you have certain assets with you. So for example, company has websites, company has trademark, company has machinery. So you want to sell those assets. So you find a buyer. So the buyer will buy out the business as it is. It's called business transfer agreement. They will buy out all the assets of the business altogether. So you will get a smooth exit, and all the compliance will fall on the part of the new director or the new founder. So you can think of these possibilities also, like transferring the rights to altogether 100% rights to someone else who is in need of this company. Someone who wants to start, let's say, a company in the, let's say, FMCG sector. They want to do it from the scratch. So if you can help them, provide them let's say a vehicle that is prepared for them, they can come on board, they can give you the compensation, and then you can take an exit and they will take it forward. So how the trademarks will function in that case, so these issues can be decided. And regarding your point regarding trademarks, so the trademark, one issue which we see is that, first of all, you have to decide the brand quite early, because you cannot leave the brand name decision at a very last stage, because there might be similar brands in market, the protection might not be available, the domain names might not be available. So buying the right domain and then having that domain in place and having the entire domain portfolio in place, that will help you to generate a portfolio of trademarks and protect the brand name. So brand name, brainstorm with marketing professionals, brainstorm with other people, and then decide the brand name, select the right brand name based on your decision, and then you file for trademark. That's the right step.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions, Sushant, you want to ask?
No, sir.
Okay, thanks, Sushant. So that was interesting.
Thank you, sir.
So let's bring in Abhay.
Yes, sir.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Abhay. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good, good. So you can start.
Sure, sir. Sir, I'm working on in the travel sector particularly, and particularly in experiential travel. Okay, so experiential travel is something different from rest and recharge travel that we usually perform. Matlab, I have been taking certain trips also, end-to-end trips, and we just found out ki the particular thing that is missing is the experience. We just hop to a place, we stay there, we party, we come back. So we found out that this was missing. It is important to know about the culture of that place, and particularly all about the food and those authentic experiences. So I'm working on that part by a chain of aggregators, by acting as an aggregator for homestays that are located at the offbeat locations. So what we will be doing, we will be just standardizing them in respect to their accounts and operations, and particularly the interiors, where we will be keeping those interiors very much close to the elements that present their culture. And apart from that, also the food that we are going to offer on that. So these are two things that I am working on, and I have recently incorporated a private limited firm. Although I was earlier taking the trips, and the amount that is generated is going to my particular account, saving accounts. So I don't think that would be counted in this. So I have just incorporated a private limited with two directors. One is me and one is one of my friend. But the thing is that maybe that friend will not be the co-founder. So will that particularly affect everything? Matlab, if I get someone on board as a co-founder, because I have a team working with me right now, which have people from technical background and branding background. So will that particular thing affect that whole process? Because I am quite confused into the part of this co-founder equities and those things. Right now, we are not generating even any revenue because we are on to the planning part to execute everything.
Right. So when you say that you have brought someone on board as a director, and then you are in a dilemma whether that person is a director plus co-founder or just a director. That's the
Right,
dilemma right now.
right, right.
Right. So I
Although
will.
they will
Yeah.
be working with me, although the other director will be working with me, but there is certain rationalism between this director and co-founder term, at least for me.
Right. So let's start with something. When somebody is already a director, so that means they are the director and they have certain shareholding in the company.
Right.
So they are not in the employee category; they are in the management company category. That's
Correct.
that's clear, because as soon as you bring someone on board as a director, that's clear.
Mm.
And now, when you have someone on board, and that person, now you need to see the roles and responsibility of that person. So, for example, if that person is contributing to a particular part, let's say execution of development, or let's say purely the sales or purely the finance, so then the designation, whether it can be co-founder or not, that can be decided. So, for
Right.
example, if you bring someone on board as a director, right? I understand that there has the eligibility is two directors, and sometimes you need that team in place to bring someone on board.
Right.
So that's the reason you brought someone as director. So now, since then both of you are already directors, so one, if that person is not part of the co-founders, you don't. That is, so first of all, there should be clarity on that, whether a person is co-founder or not.
Hmm.
So, and how to have the clarity is depending on the roles of each founder. So, for example, if you are, let's say, CEO, or you are the face of the company, and that person is just, let's say, senior level employee, so it can be part of management, but not the co-founder. So the future journey can be you bring someone who you need as a co-founder, and then there can be a 3-director company, and 2 directors can be co-founders. That
All
can
right.
be one way in future.
Hmm.
And second is, sometimes we see a lot of people, they work as consultants. So they work with early stage companies, they form part of management team, and then they want a quick exit, right? So then you should be clear whether they are coming on board with their investment of cash, or with the investment of the skills. And if these skills are required for long term or for short term basis. So based on that, you get the paperwork in place, you define their roles and responsibility, you make sure they get the desired compensation. And once that is done, either they will continue to be part of your journey, or they will take an exit, because you will expand your team, you will have more directors. So just a company with 2 directors, you need third director first, and then one of you can be replaced in future, because a company needs minimum 2 directors for its survival. Otherwise,
Right,
survival
sir.
is not possible, right? So
Right.
so in simple terms, plan your future journey. And if the second person sees you, both of you see that co-founder, that director as a co-founder, contributing to the company in the management, and then contribute to the business, staying with the business, then you need a co-founders agreement. If you see this as a short-term arrangement, then you think how to expand your team, and then as and when the person takes an exit, you will have the company intact and set for future growth.
Right, sir. And one more thing, sir. Like I have just registered that firm into the name of XYZ, okay, private limited, and I have been operating on the websites like the company's name is Draft Auto Experiences Private Limited, okay, and the concept that we are working on is particularly we have named it as Culturos and the X plugin. So can I use both the names? Like on the firm side, it is Trapped Orders, but on website and social medias, it is different names. So is that a problem, certainly, or is it fine to work with this?
So it is totally fine for what you would. I will use the exact term. So what you are saying, a company has a business name. That business name is the name by which the company is incorporated, which is XYZ Private Limited. And then each company can have multiple brands. So it can be, let's say Facebook has one entity, then Facebook Messenger, Facebook Group, all the Facebook pages. These are the brands within the same entity. So same for LinkedIn solution. LinkedIn is a, let's say, first, it's a part of Microsoft now. So they have different brands. LinkedIn has LinkedIn pages. So all these things, a company, it's very common to have different brand names. What you need is, if those brands are, obviously these are brand name where you will interact with consumers at some level. So if these brands are commercially that important for you to sustain your business, to scale up your business, you need some protection on these brands. A brand is protected by two kinds of protection generally. The first is trademark and second is domain name. So for any brand, you need to make sure that you own the domain name. Even if you're not ready to launch a site for that brand, but no one else should be able to buy that .com or in India .in or .co.in or these 3-4 standard domain name extensions. So you have to make sure that a domain portfolio is owned by you. And once the brand gets commercially viable, you file for trademarks. So that's how you protect the brand name. And again, it's highly advisable that the brand name should be different from a business name. So for example, if you're running a business with the XYZ Private Limited and you launch your brand as same XYZ only, then there's a risk, supposedly, that brands get into a dispute, your entire business is at stake. For example, there's a dispute and the dispute reaches the court, and the court orders that you are not authorized to use this brand for any reason what they find merits in. So then you have to not only change the brand name, but you have to change your business name. So that is very difficult because the bank account is in the name of this XYZ Private Limited, the GST and all the compliance is in this name. So it's logistically impossible to get these things in place. So that's what I would suggest. Make sure that like you are on right track, single brand and multiple brands under the umbrella of a single company, and then deciding which one to take forward by way of appropriate protection of domains and trademarks.
Right, sir. And sir, one last question. So after the incorporation part, so we have these compliances by ROC for directors and the company. Like we have to get auditor on board. I think that is one auditor thing has to be sent back to ROC or those things. So and I think that it has a period of around 1 month or 2 months from the date of incorporation. So if we have not just started, like don't have any particular CA right now working with us, ठीक है, तो वो auditor वाला जो part है, do we need to get that necessarily on that part, मतलब वो, and also we haven't started the operations through that firm, so it is mandatory to get those still to be done.
Right. So for any company, as soon as you incorporate, as per the latest applicable regulations, the first thing, like you said, once the company is there, and then you have to intimate the registrar that you are starting the business activity. So once you start, then there is another set of compliance that are applicable. So what you need is, as soon as you incorporate, you need at least one CA that can help you, because these compliances, these are dependent on the activities of business. And these vary for each kind of business, for each kind of structure. So you need to have that thing in place and plan the blueprint, because having the auditor, sometimes auditing is mandatory in case of certain accounts. Sometimes you can get exemption, but that is not like something which you can decide on your own. So get an accountant in place, and if the auditor is mandatory, you need to have one company, because see, the nature of your business, it's quite similar to Airbnb, right? So if you are acting as a, let's say, transaction platform between the demand side and the supply side, then you have to make sure the liabilities on you as a company will fall from both the sides. So compliance will get stricter. So if auditor is required, you get the auditor in place. So your CA will help you in that. And that's how you scale up when you start a business and you are heavily dependent on an accountant. So make sure the accountant understands your journey. The CA understands that why this business was started and what are the future steps. So they will guide you accordingly.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for this.
Right. Thanks, Abhay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Tanya, I think we have one question on a very interesting topic, which is NFTs.
Yes.
So, have you heard about NFTs or like any experience in reading about it?
Sir, exactly. I was about to ask the same question on the same that I very briefly I know about it, but not in detail. So if you could give an overview about it before answering the question, it would be very helpful.
Right. So let's before getting into the question, I know like this is a very recent term, non-fungible tokens, right? I read couple of news article quite recently. They're like in simple terms, what I understood was that if before the digital transaction platform, people used to invest in art. Art is something where people invest a lot of money. People who understand art, they invest a lot of money in buying like piece of arts and paintings and other stuff, right? So now if this transaction is happening digitally, how as a buyer, how will you authenticate that what you are getting is real or not? So what artists are doing, they are using blockchain technology to ensure that the piece of art or the creative piece is authentic as verified by them using blockchain technology. And then people are buying that using these non-fungible tokens, which is similar to cryptocurrency, and they are buying rights. So it's so if you want to understand in very simple terms, we need to see that whether this is a one-time right, whether it comes with the right to resell, whether it comes with the right to exclusive use or right to commercial use. So can you buy, let's say, a piece of art like this and use it for commercial purposes or not? So as an artist, if somebody is putting up their art on or digital content, so that is the question. I'll read the question like, as NFTs take hold in the new digital age, how does one monetize their digital content available on public domain? And second part is, are such transactions legal in India? So first part is that monetization will depend on the artist, what kind of terms the artist wants to put in. That whether they want, like I said, it's a one-time license, one-time use for personal use, for commercial use. So those terms should be clear because NFT is just, I would say, an alternative mechanism instead of a normal business transaction. So terms are required. And second, this is the way they can put their content in public domain and have verified purchases or maybe auctions as well. If that, I don't know if that is possible, but that can be the next step in this. I would read about it, that whether auctions are happening on NFTs or not. I have not read about this. And second is legality in India. So in India, as of now, the law regarding cryptocurrency is quite clear that what all is happening is banks are not allowing you to use their debit cards and credit card to buy cryptocurrency or trade in cryptocurrency. That is not allowed. Now, if you are able to bypass it, let's say somebody is having a bank account in an account that is not in India, and you're using that account to buy a cryptocurrency or NFT, you're taking part in NFT transactions, then the laws in India are not applicable. So as a buyer or as a user, the risk lies with you, and the laws applicable in the country where you hold the bank account are applicable. Or if you are having an international credit card issued by a non-Indian bank, that bank does not have a presence in India. So it all depends. So legalities will depend on these parts because in India the transactions are not legal as held by as issued by the RBI. There's a notification by the government. So these regulations are only applicable for entities in India and users in India. So if somebody is doing this taking part in these transactions outside the purview of the Indian law, then these laws are not applicable, and you will be governed by the laws of that country. So I think that's it. Anything you want to ask as closing comment, Tanya? Because this was really interesting. We covered different issues.
Yes, so we covered issues, on across all sectors of business. And so one question I wanted to ask, I think post lockdown, because this I think there's a new term called COVID digitization, where everybody is running online businesses, etc. So if you could talk about, if you could just give like a little starter pack of a must knows. Of any business, and any business basically going online, start working on or start working through a website, and also using the various social media platforms to conduct their businesses. So what would be a couple of guidelines and know-hows that every small business going digital should know?
Right. So this is something which I think every business went through even before COVID in different parts, in bits and pieces, right? You must have read about digital transformation. You must have read about when cloud computing took over, because earlier people, in simple terms, when technology companies used to have their business in place, the companies used to invest a lot in physical infrastructure, servers, and all the hardware. And then cloud computing made it easier to get rid of that infrastructure and use it on demand. So when you use anything on demand, you are talking about SaaS, that is software as a service. So for example, as a simple user of Microsoft Office, you must have seen earlier, we used to buy, like in childhood, we used to buy DVDs or CDs of Microsoft Word and all this entire pack. Sometimes that pack was valid for 1 year, sometimes for lifetime. And then now we just buy these tools online. You just go to Microsoft's website, you register for a plan, and you pay them a monthly or yearly fee. So you are paying them a license fee, and instead of owning the software, you license it. So it's like renting the software in simple terms. So these things were happening in different bits and pieces across different industries. What COVID has done is it has brought everything all together in a single umbrella. And now people talk about remote work, future of work is remote, and people are working, hybrid work is a new phenomena, which is, I think, the way the industry will get diverted to the hybrid work culture. So when you say any company is starting, so you have to consider tech first as a startup. That you cannot have a physical, even if you are running a physical business, you open a very small kiosk, let's say in a very small corner of a city, and let's say you are selling, even if it's a coffee shop, right? But you will have your digital presence, you will have your website. People would want to search for you. Even if people know you, they would want to see whether you are closed and open on certain days. They will do Google searches, so you will need to have a Google My Business page. So there is a certain, like you said, starter pack is something which is very important. You need to have these social media digital tools sorted, and once you have these things in place, then you are interacting with consumers not physically but digitally. And so you need to make sure how you collect consumer data. Your privacy policy should be up to date. If somebody is giving you their, let's say, email IDs and phone numbers, are they secure? Is there what are you doing to prevent the unauthorized use? Like we read the company XYZ company Zomato's database got leaked way back. So we keep on reading these news. So as a startup, we need to prevent these scenarios, right? You can't have a single device to manage all the customer data. So I know, like a very simple scenario, I know a lot of people running digital businesses. They're providing with social media marketing and all those services. And when they hire team members, they give, let's say in Instagram, you cannot have like admins. You have to share the user ID and password, right? So if you, for example, you are a business owner and you engage an agency that you manage my Instagram profile, and that agency has a couple of employees who use their own personal device to manage the Instagram page of the client, and the device is either tampered or broken or stolen, and data is leaked, then who is responsible, right? So who has to? So these are the best practices one has to consider while launching the business, and make sure prevent unauthorized usage of data, protect the data, and make sure you are a technology first company no matter what you do. Right. So we have one more question regarding open source licenses like MIT and so these licenses, any open source license, they are not limited to jurisdiction where they're getting used, because they are right to use license. So if you are creating any product, and if you are using any let's say digital code or piece of code or piece of software that's governed by these licenses, the terms are pretty clear. So you can go to license terms of each of these websites and read them very carefully. They must have written how license is applicable to entities in their country and to entities outside their jurisdiction. So every answer you will find in reading the terms of license, because like I said, I was talking an example of Microsoft Office. So let's say if I use Office, and if I'm using, if someone opens a shop and starts printing out, let's say, leaflets for the client, charging them money using the same Office, but you can't do it using a personal license. You need a commercial license for that. So license, all the terms are governed by the licensing agreement. It's generally called EULA also, end user license agreement. And it's always written on the company's website, or if you buy a product, they will provide you with the agreement.
Yes, that was quite helpful. So I have another question regarding are IPRs applicable on content created for social media platforms? If you create something, do you have can you exercise an IPR over it?
traditionally, as per copyright law, creators own the copyright. If creators are creating for their own use, or if they are creating content as a part of their company or employment agreement, then the employer owns the copyright or the IP rights. But in case of social media, this changes. This changes because any social media platform, they have their own terms of use for each user. So if, for example, you want to read terms of use for, let's say, Facebook, for Instagram, for Twitter, so they have written that what happens to the IP you create. So, for example, if I record a video and I put it on my profile on Instagram, then ideally I should own the video. But as soon as I click upload, it is with the Instagram. It is governed by the Instagram's terms of use. Now Instagram has, as so once you create an account and you click, everyone clicks I agree without reading it, right? We just click I agree. So once you agree to those terms, so that means that Instagram owns certain parts of those IP rights, and they have the right to further use. So you see, you must have seen if any new feature is launched, like for example, there's a feature called Reels on Instagram. And so if as a user, if you click on Reels, so Instagram will show you certain Reels, right? So now Instagram is not getting paid by those people to promote their Reels, but Instagram's algorithm is selecting randomly which Reels are bound to get more eyeballs. So that means they are reusing the content for their own commercial purpose, so that user spends more time on their platform. So all these rights as a creator, we give to the Instagram platform as soon as we upload the content, because we are governed by their terms. Sometimes they even have the right to use this data for third-party purposes. So for example, if a company approaches Instagram and asks them that what kind of content is being shared by people in this age group of this gender on this particular day on this, so you have given as a creator right to them to share this data. They will not reveal the identity of users, but the data is getting shared. The content can be repurposed and reused. And how they are doing it, they have written it quite comprehensively on the website, which is sometimes not in layman language. And these are mostly guidelines, and they do a lot of things happen at the back end which are not in accordance with these terms. So as a content creator, whenever you put anything, it's out in the open. You can't take it back. You can't claim ownership. Even if you delete a content, people must have taken screenshots. Somebody must have archived it somewhere. There are ways to download the content also. So as a business owner, as a content creator, it's very important to make sure the content that goes out before you click the send button, that is something you are giving it, like rights are also going along with the content.
Right. So I think that's very helpful, because a lot of businesses already, not just the content creators, but also businesses are posting a lot of, their work and, on social media platforms, and that is actually getting them a lot of business. So to understand that as small businesses is also, quite helpful. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. So it's like, just to summarize this, as a content creator, think yourself as a, let's say in traditional terms, industrial, when factory used to produce goods, so content creators are producing content. So your content is part of your goods that you're producing. So if you think that these goods are not commercially viable, just for promotion, you will give out for free, right? But there is, for example, this session we are doing, right? This is a session we are doing it for free on LinkedIn, on YouTube. It is getting shared. But if we are part of a structure system, a university or a startup, and we are coaching the team members, then we will do it privately. We will not upload it. It will not be a live session. So as content creator, it's up to us how we govern our content and what we want to do with our content. So there are a lot of content that is, in the category of promotional content. You just want to promote your profile or your business. So it doesn't matter whether companies are using it or it's getting reshared by someone. You're not getting enough credit or you're not getting commercial returns. But there can be certain level of content where you have invested a lot in creating the content, in getting to a nice commercial location, planning the shoot and all that. So that has to go, like the launch has to be planned, the legal issues have to be considered, and so that you get the desired returns and your liability is minimized as a content creator.
Yes, sir. That's very helpful. So thank you, sir.
Yeah. So anything else you want to ask? Otherwise, I think we had really good session, and it would be good to compile notes out of it.
Yes, sir. Really, it was very helpful, and I think the knowledge pool has really widened. We cover topics from the automobile sector, FMCG, content creation. Dynamic. Topics such as NFTs, and we also talked about open source licenses. So it's been quite vast. So that's been quite helpful. So we have another question.
Yeah, yeah. So um, businesses that provide experiences in tourism, like this is which provisions of okay. So this is a very interesting question. Like Abhay explained his business that they are a lot of people see traditionally when people used to launch business. So I think if Abhay is there, I can bring him online as well because he will have his own thoughts. So Abhay, I think you are on the screen. So the question relates to your business. So see, when internet was a revolution when it started, right? So internet brought forward a category called OTAs, online travel agents. Instead of going physical to a travel agent's office or calling them from phone, you could see their website, you could see the packages and book it, right? So a lot of sites they just standardize the entire, like you want to go to, matlab, if you're sitting in Delhi, so Agra Taj Mahal, right? That kind of packages, no experience. Whatever everybody was doing before internet, just do that. Then people got fed up with that we are doing the same thing. So now then experience thing came into picture. Like you experience something, you want to stay closer to nature, you want to stay close to a river, you want to do rafting, whatever you want to do, you go for those categories of businesses. So then as a business owners, we also got evolved that we should launch experience-based business. Our restaurant should be an experience, right? How the chef prepares the dish, how the dish is being served. People are paying money for it, right? So that means there is a commercial transaction beyond the standard aspect. There's an experience. And that's what the question is, that as a themed restaurant or as a theme, let's say, provider of tourism in this category, what is your IP? So if we are considering US market, there's a term called trade dress. I will. This is a very interesting question, and I want to stress on the part called trade dress. It is defined in US law. So I will explain trade dress in very simple term. For example, if we three of us we walk together in a restaurant, okay, and the restaurant there is no name, but the theme is all green and there's fitting involved, then it is a self-service restaurant, and then there's a billing counter, and then they will give you a bill receipt, you take it to the desired counter, you get your dish. So you will say it's something like Haldiram or Bikaner wala. Okay, so this is called trade dress. So if I take you to a restaurant that is red in color and they are serving, let's say, a very nice collection of chicken variants, they have bucket and all, you will say it's simply like KFC because it's dressed like that. So even if somebody is not using the name or the logo, but still you can make out because the trade dress, we are so familiar, we are so conditioned as consumers. So that is their IP. So in US law, trade dress is defined. So for example, if somebody starts a restaurant or a business in the US, they have a protection under trade dress. In India, you don't have direct protection that is defined. It is established. So like Haldiram, protection is defined how? It is defined. So when you decide a brand name, you protect the text of the brand by trademark. Then you protect the logo, second, which is the black and white logo. And third, you protect the colored logo, written in a particular color. You give the color codes. So all these things together result in trade dress for any brand. So when you are an experience-based business, experience-based restaurant, you dissect the every part into various IPs and see what all you can protect. Something is part of patent, something part of trademark, something is copyright, and then collectively you get the trade dress. So that is it. Abhay, any thoughts like when you started, how you considered Airbnb, B&B and all? Yeah.
So does this also include the particular all the interiors and those themes also?
If it is too unique, so like we had a brewery here in Gurgaon which was in the theme of a ship. It was like a cruise, so it had 3 levels and it had all the things, right? It closed down, but now if you have these things which are like very unique, which no one else is doing, then you file for protection, copyright, trademark, patents, whatever is. If it's functional, it will fall under patents. And once you have these rights, then collectively your trade dress is established, so nobody can copy it. If people copy it, courts will recognize this, that this is your idea, your unique concept. So as a digital platform, it's very difficult to define these IP rights. But if it is a physical, like some cafes have a very unique theme, so they have those mechanisms in place. Like if somebody tries to rips off the same cafe in same term, they have the legal mechanism in place. So like I said, in India, there's no direct law, there's no direct provision. But working with a professional and establishing it at every step, that's how you will achieve that level of unique protection for these theme-based businesses.
Right, sir. I hope that is something I got to know now
Yeah.
about this
So
trade
that's why
dress.
I brought you, because how you described your business, somebody, Ishan is in the audience. So he listened to your business model and then he asked this question. So this is really interesting because you should know that how your business will look. For example, if you have your own cafes after 5 years or so, so what kind of protection you want to seek for those cafes and outlets in future. That's how you should plan.
Right, sir. And sir, I think that is what is applicable in the franchisees part also. Like I had a franchisee of a cafe. So they had all these things defined on a certain agreement and a piece of a paper that these will be our specifications and no alterations need to be made that to that particular thing. So I think that is a trade dress, particularly if we refer to it.
Quite similar, because again the principle is quite same. In India we don't have franchisee law as compared to
Hmm.
markets like US and UK, where you can have direct franchisee law. So franchising in India is governed by contracts plus trademarks plus all the clauses of the agreement. So whatever they say, whatever you agree to, that's how you run the franchisee.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, thanks Abhay.
Thank you, Abhay. Yes, sir. So we covered a lot of new topics today that I personally wasn't really aware of, and I think everybody got a lot of deep insights to it, and our knowledge pools have really widened. So that's very helpful.
Right, so I think thanks to you, thanks to Abhay, Akshay and Sushant.
Yes,
So
sir.
I think we can close this and we can organize this very soon
Yes,
for
sir.
further topics. Yeah.
Yes, sir, for a lot of other topics as well. Thank you so much, sir, for your knowledge. It's been quite helpful. Thank you, for listening to everything in detail and giving, very comprehensive solutions to all the issues and to all the, whatever the shortcomings of, as entrepreneurs you are having, and especially in the legal, framework. So thank you so much for that. It was really helpful.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks. All the best. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.